The rain tasted metallic on Sophia's lipstick. It ran tiny rivers down her collar like silver coins slipping between her fingers. She walked fast. The city around her hummed, neon signs, taxis, a distant siren, but inside the glass tower of her company she was untouchable. That's what she thought. She had come to the building late that night for an emergency review. Floors of polished stone reflected her heels. Her phone buzzed with urgent messages. She didn't notice the old van until it coughed and died, right where the valet usually parked. A man stepped out from under an umbrella. He was not a suited executive. Not a polished investor. He had a janitor's cart in the back of that van, a mop head that had seen better days, and a face weathered like a map. He looked like someone who had learned the world's lessons with his hands. His name was John. Car trouble? Sophia asked, voice clipped. She already had a plan. She liked when problems bowed and left. It made her feel alive. John wiped his hands on a rag. Oil tracked under his fingernails. Starter's dead. Been giving me grief all week. Boss says it's fine to leave it, but I can't. Can't miss tomorrow. Special delivery. The words landed heavier than she expected. Special delivery. The thought of someone working through the night for a delivery for family, for something small and sacred, twisted something in her chest. Her friend Emma, standing a few feet away with an umbrella, snorted soft laughter. "Soph," she said. "You could buy him a new van." Sophia's mouth shaped a smile that never reached her eyes. "What would I get for a man who scrubs toilets and polishes floors?" she said. It was meant to be a joke. A sharp one. A public thing that would slice and amuse. John heard it. He stiffened but didn't flinch. The rain found his eyelashes and traced them down, like the world was rinsing him clean. "Fix it?" John asked. "I could take a look. If it's simple." Emma laughed. "Why not? If he fixes the engine, Sophia will marry him." The words dropped into the air like a ridiculous coin. Laughter followed. People love a spectacle. Silence pooled for a breath. Then Sophia repeated it, sharper. "Yeah. Fix this engine, and I'll marry you." She didn't mean it. She didn't even think she'd remember she'd said it. But John looked up. His eyes were calm, even kind. "All right," he said. "Let's see the problem." He kneeled beside the van. Rain ticked on his cap. He opened the hood like a priest opening a liturgy. The engine was a mess of grime and history. John's hands moved. They were steady. They knew their way through bolts and hoses the way a pianist knows where the black keys live. Sophia watched. She felt something odd stir, an unease at the edges of her amusement. It was small at first. A whisper. But it grew. People gathered. The lobby lights blinked. Someone streamed it on a phone. Comments scrolled like a tide. John hummed to himself as he worked. He muttered small prayers. He talked to the parts as if they might listen. Sophia found herself leaning in despite her pride. The rain hissed against the pavement. The van coughed. It started. The crowd erupted. Emma hooped. Sophia felt her face go warm. "Lucky," she said to John, trying to pull the moment back into jest. But her voice trembled, the tremor of a woman who had surprised herself. John stood. His palms were dirty. He looked at Sophia. "You said..." He didn't finish. She had said it. She remembered the words now. It was a joke. John's smile was patient. "Doesn't matter," he said simply. "You said it." There was a strange hush. Even the rain seemed to wait. Sophia felt the world tilt by a degree she hadn't accounted for. What did she want from that tilt? To laugh it off? To keep walking into the warm glow of power? Or to let herself be caught, for once, by something honest? She left, somewhat ashamed to feel lighter than she should. He closed the hood. He folded the rag and put it in his pocket. He watched her go. How far would a promise go when it started as a joke? That night, Sophia thought it was over. John did not. And an ordinary van would become the first scene in a story that neither of them expected. Sophia woke the next morning with the taste of rain still on her tongue. The tower was the tower. Meetings, power breakfasts, investor calls. She told herself she'd forget the parking lot. She almost did. At 10, a message slid across her assistant's screen. A short note. A photo. A man in a dusty uniform, standing by the building doors with a small bouquet of carnations in his hand. John. He looked determined. Slightly nervous. Who is he? Sophia asked, even though she already knew. He says he's here to deliver something, her assistant said, eyebrows raised. He asked for you. When John stepped into the glass foyer, the light bent around him like an exclamation. He smelled faintly of grease and lemon scent cleaner. His hair was damp. He held the bouquet like a relic. Sophia's colleagues watched from behind glass walls. The CEO's entrance into the lobby had an audience now. Ms. Carter, John said. He used her last name like a formal prayer. You told me last night, if I fixed the engine, you'd marry me. A hush. Someone in HR made a choking sound. Sophia smoothed her blazer. That was a joke, she said, but this time the words were softer. The joke was now a living thing standing across from her. John smiled, not cocky but sure. I fixed it, he replied. And I thought, if you are serious enough to say it, you should mean it. There was a ripple of laughter. A camera flashed. Emma mouthed something behind Sophia. This is insane. What do you want? Sophia asked. She meant it. The question was practical. She was practical. She had built an empire on precision. Marriage was a variable she had not planned for. John's hands were steady. A chance, he said. To prove I'm more than a joke. To you. To your people. To myself. He glanced at the bouquet. I don't have a ring, he added with a quick, honest smile that cut through the laughter. There were murmurs. Robert, head of maintenance, stepped forward. John's a good man, he said gruffly. He works hard. That van keeps him alive. That job keeps his daughter's schoolbooks stacked. He's not playing. Sophia felt a tug she couldn't name. She thought of the meetings where decisions were made like chess moves. She thought of the boardroom where deals were sealed with firm handshakes and softer lies. What did she know of a man who spoke to machines as if they were friends? Do you want to do this in public? She asked, surprising herself. The lobby stared. The security guard watched. Notifications buzzed. John swallowed. If you want private. Or public. I don't mind. His voice didn't tremble. A beat. Then Sophia did something she never did. She let the rules bend. All right, she said. Prove it. For 1 month. Work a week in the maintenance team. Learn the office side. Meet the people you'll be marrying into. If, at the end, you still want this, we'll talk about what it means. It was a corporate compromise. A trial period. A contract, almost. But it was the closest thing to a promise she could offer without losing face. John's eyes softened. 1 month, he repeated. I can do that. Somewhere behind the glass, Emma mouthed, you can't be serious. But Sophia was. For reasons she couldn't yet name, she felt a curious blend of dread and excitement. Later, as John walked out with his bouquet and a small notebook of appointments in his pocket, Sophia stood by the window and watched him disappear into the city. She had set the terms. She had given herself guardrails. But a month, she thought, could shift everything. Can a trial contract change the course of 2 lives? The month began with early mornings, soggy newspapers, and small betrayals, but the real tests were yet to come. John arrived on his first day in his cleanest shirt. It still smelled faintly of engine oil. He had ironed it as best he could. He carried a thermos. He was nervous in a way that made him human. Sophia watched him from across the atrium like a general overseeing maneuvers. She had arranged the schedule herself. He would shadow maintenance, learn admin, attend a security briefing. She wanted to see how he navigated systems she'd built. The maintenance crew greeted John like family. They handed him gloves. Robert clapped him on the back. "Don't be shy," he said. "Show 'em what you got." John listened. He swept. He learned the names of fluorescent tubes and server racks. He learned to read maintenance logs with the intensity you'd read a map. He took pride in the small things, replacing a filter, tightening a bolt, remembering Mr. Patel's break schedule. He smiled often, not in the way of the desperate, but in the way of someone grateful for steady ground. Sophia sat in a glass-walled office and watched him through her reflection. Sometimes she would forget to breathe. She saw his hands move, saw the way he knelt to lift a heavy crate without complaint. She had men at her command who used power like a weapon. John used his hands like a tool to build someone else's day. At midday, she obliged him to attend a sales pitch. He sipped coffee while executives spoke about projections and synergies. He looked around, puzzled. "What's synergy?" he asked quietly to Emma, who'd joined him. "It's a word that makes people feel smart," Emma whispered, rolling her eyes. John laughed. "Sounds expensive." That night, John returned home through streets washed clean by rain. He unlocked an apartment small enough to hug. On the table sat a homework packet and a plate half-eaten. A photograph of a little girl smiled from the fridge. Her name was Evelyn. She had his eyes. She had his laugh. He found a note from someone named Michael, a neighbor, reminding him of Evelyn's school recital in 2 days. John kissed the picture and felt something fierce surge. He was not doing this for vanity. He was doing it for Evelyn. Sophia found herself trying to read his life in the margins. She peeked at his lunch choices. He ate stew from a thermos, carefully portioned. He saved receipts in a little envelope. He lived with the economy of someone who measured every coin by need, not want. She walked home later than usual and found herself stopping at the corner where John lived. Flesh and loneliness are blunt things. She watched his window glow like a small promise. She felt ridiculous, watching a man in a building where she once had no reason to be. The next day at work, John made a mistake. He misfiled an inventory log. A costly error, some said. It would have been easier to fire him. Instead, Sophia called him into her office. "Why did you do it?" she asked. He looked at her, eyes honest. "I was trying to help Mr. Patel. His mother's name's on the file. I thought if I found the old order I could." He trailed off, the sentence breaking on the edge of an apology. Sophia could have punished him. She could have demonstrated her power. Instead, she asked him to stay late. She taught him how to use the software. The night hummed with the glow of monitors and 2 people learning each other's language. That evening, as they left, Sophia turned to him. "You know this wasn't a promise," she said, softer than she intended. John nodded. "You gave me a chance. How long will you hold on to that chance?" she asked. He looked at the city lights. "As long as it takes," he said. He meant every word. When work becomes intimacy, what boundaries remain? A spilled cup, a whispered secret, and a night that neither of them planned would change everything. A video hit the internet on a restless Friday. Someone had filmed John fixing a downtown delivery truck 2 blocks from Sophia's charity gala. It showed his hands, quick and sure. It showed him smiling at a child when he handed back a flattened stuffed bear. Underneath, a caption read, "Janitor who fixed CEO's car is a hero." The clip went viral. Sophia watched the numbers climb on her phone like a tide. Views, shares, comments. Some were tender. Some were ugly. The internet has no filter for compassion. She felt exposed in a new way. For once, the story wasn't about quarterly growth. It was about something messier. People started to post about John's daughter. Someone found Evelyn's recital flyer. A fundraiser popped up. Strangers wrote checks. A local reporter called, asking to interview John about the viral kindness. John was reluctant. He wanted no fuss. He wanted steady work and Evelyn's recitals to go unremarked. But the attention meant help. It meant someone offered to fix his van for free. It meant a neighbor set up tuition assistance. It meant the city's social worker knocked on his door with a program application. Standing in that swirl, John found himself invited to the gala. Sophia offered him a ticket. He hesitated. He had never been to such a place. He had never worn clothes that shimmered in that manufactured light. "Come," Sophia insisted. "Just for the dinner. I want you to see where I work." Her voice had no ceremony now. It was honest and a little raw. John arrived in borrowed shoes that pinched. Evelyn had sewn a little handkerchief into his pocket. He clutched it like a talisman. In the ballroom, people looked at him like he was an exhibit. Some nodded with true respect. Others whispered. A few smirked. The air smelled of perfume and expensive hors d'oeuvres. Sophia felt the gulf between their worlds like a physical thing. At dinner, a board member, Michael, asked bluntly, "So, what does a man like you want from a woman like Sophia?" John's jaw tightened. "Respect," he said. "A chance to prove I'm a good father. A chance to wake up and not be anxious about tomorrow." The room hummed. Sophia watched the way his words landed. She saw that in the audience, hearts shifted. After the applause and the piano, they stepped out onto a balcony. The city spread glittering below. Sophia's hands trembled almost imperceptibly. "People will speculate," she said. "They'll try to make something out of this that's not real." John leaned on the railing. "Let them," he replied. "I'm not here for them." They stood in silence. The wind moved the hem of her dress. The world felt enormous and tiny at the same time. "Why did you keep repairing things?" he asked finally. "Even when it cost you?" She blinked. "What do you mean?" "You work so hard to create control," he said. "Why let a joke get under your skin?" She stared at him. The question had the soft brutality of truth. She had no neat answer. She only had a memory of the parking lot, and the rain, and the way his hands had fixed things without gossip. She found herself saying, in a voice that surprised her, "Because it made me curious." John's laugh was small. "Curiosity can be dangerous," he said. "And also necessary," she replied. "When the crowd watches, whose story is it to tell?" The world had an opinion. But behind closed doors, the hardest choices were still private. The month dwindled. The trial period had become a rhythm. John knew the coffee cart schedule. Sophia knew which fluorescent light in the south wing flickered at 9 p.m. Evelyn's recital arrived with a program in John's jacket pocket. Sophia had a seat in the third row. She watched him from the crowd. He stood when Evelyn played her song. His shoulders were loose with pride. Something inside Sophia melted in a way titles could not fix. After the recital, in a hallway smelling of dry roses and old wood, John and Sophia walked side by side. They had shared small things, soup in a late-night cafe, an argument about whether pride could be bought, a quiet conversation about fathers who leave and fathers who stay. "Do you remember the joke?" John asked. She did. The first night's rain felt like another life. "I do," she said. He took a breath. "You offered a month. I took it seriously. I meant every day." She looked at him. There was no game here. Only two people standing with their choices. "So, what now?" she asked. John's hand brushed hers accidentally. It was a tiny thing. A current. "Now," he said, "we keep living it. The job. The dinners. The mistakes. The good mornings." Sophia laughed softly. "That sounds annoyingly simple." He smiled. "Simple can be brave." They agreed there would be no dramatic proposal. No staged theatrics. There would be conversation. There would be meetings with families and friends and truth. There would be questions about income, about future plans, about where Evelyn would go to school. Practical things. Necessary things. There were also tendernesses. He taught her how to oil a hinge without stripping it. She taught him how to negotiate with a vendor without apology. They learned each other's languages: fear, optimism, stubbornness. On a quiet night, with rain again tracing glass, Sophia found herself admitting something she'd never say in a boardroom. "I mocked love because it felt fragile," she whispered. "I was afraid of being small." John squeezed her hand. "You're not small," he said. "You're human." They stood, two imperfect people building something neither had planned. At the company holiday party months later, Sophia made a short speech. She spoke of teams, of effort, of small acts that become culture. She did not make a spectacle. She did not announce anything grand. But those who knew read between the lines. Afterwards, John pulled her into the quiet of the rooftop. The city lights were a map of the life they might share. He looked at her with the steady eyes she recognized now. "Will you marry me?" he asked. She laughed first, then cried a little. "Yes," she said. "But not because of rain or engines. Because I chose you." They kissed under a sky that had nothing to prove. Neighbors downstairs cheered, and for once, the sound of applause made sense. At the end, he wrote a note and slipped it into Evelyn's lunchbox the next morning. "We are a team." She found it at school and showed Sophia the note later, beaming. "Team," she said like it was a badge. Now, years later, people still tell the story. The CEO, the janitor, the joke that arrived like a dare and became a life. But the truth was smaller and truer. Promises aren't made in glee. They're made in steady choices, in small mornings, in the way someone shows up when the van sputters and the world thinks nothing of it. Sophia sometimes thinks back to the night in the parking lot. She wonders about the line between power and vulnerability. She wonders what she learned about listening to a hand that knows how to fix things. And sometimes at night, John will find a new oil stain on his hand and grin. He will think of Evelyn's laughter and the ridiculous, beautiful path that began with the words, "I'll marry you." If you were there, what would you have done in Sophia's shoes? What about John's? Share your thoughts. Have you ever made a promise on a whim that turned into something real?